Have you ever imagined what it looks like when a narcissist finally breaks down? For so long they carry themselves with arrogance, control, and a mask of superiority. But behind that mask is fragility, fear, and emptiness waiting to explode. The day a narcissist finally cracks is not glamorous. It is raw, frightening, and deeply revealing of the truth they've always tried to hide. Psychologists explain that narcissists build their entire world around illusions. They thrive on admiration, manipulation, and control. But when these illusions collapse, when their supply is gone, when their lies no longer work, they experience what experts call a narcissistic breakdown. It is the moment when their fragile ego can no longer hold the weight of reality. In the beginning, you may not notice it immediately. The narcissist might appear calm, even overconfident, as if nothing can touch them. But the signs of their breakdown creep in slowly. Their anger grows sharper, their charm fades, and their once unshakable confidence begins to crack. The mask they wore so proudly starts to slip. The truth is, narcissists are terrified of exposure. They spend their lives hiding weaknesses, pretending to be flawless. But when they lose control, when their lies are uncovered, or when you finally walk away, they are forced to face themselves. And facing themselves is their greatest nightmare. The breakdown begins the moment the mask shatters. A narcissistic breakdown is not just emotional, it is psychological and sometimes physical. They may experience anxiety, depression, or even health issues caused by the stress of losing their false image. Psychologists warn that this collapse can be violent, chaotic, and unpredictable. It's the unraveling of everything they spent a lifetime constructing. One of the first reactions during this breakdown is rage. Narcissists cannot handle rejection or humiliation. When they feel abandoned, they lash out, sometimes with words, sometimes with actions. This rage is not power, it is desperation. It's the flailing of someone who knows their control is slipping through their fingers. But rage is only the surface. Beneath it lies shame. Psychologists note that narcissists live in constant fear of shame, and when they break, that fear becomes reality. They feel exposed, humiliated, and powerless. For someone who built their identity on superiority, this shame feels unbearable, like their entire world has crumbled. The breakdown also reveals their loneliness. Narcissists often push away real connection in pursuit of power. When the collapse comes, they look around and find no one left to support them. Friends, partners, even family may have grown tired of the manipulation. Suddenly, the narcissist is surrounded not by admirers, but by silence. It is in that silence that their torment grows. Without someone to control, without an audience, they spiral into panic. Psychologists call this loss of supply catastrophic. It's like pulling the plug on their very existence. The narcissist begins to crumble internally, unable to maintain the illusion that once made them feel untouchable. For survivors, seeing a narcissist break down can be shocking. The person who once seemed so powerful now looks small, desperate, and weak. But it is also a reminder, their power was never real. It existed only as long as you believed in their mask. When the mask breaks, the truth is revealed. They were fragile all along. The narcissist breakdown does not happen overnight. It builds gradually, like cracks spreading across glass. At first they deny it, acting as though nothing has changed. But every rejection, every exposure, every loss of control adds weight. Psychologists explain this slow collapse is agonizing because they are forced to watch their own empire of lies crumble piece by piece. When their charm stops working, they panic. Narcissists rely on charm as their weapon, but during a breakdown, their words lose power. People see through their flattery. Their manipulation no longer fools anyone. The realization that their influence has faded terrifies them. It feels like standing on a stage where the audience has walked away forever. During this breakdown, narcissists often try to hoover desperately, attempting to pull old victims back into their web. They send messages, make promises, or fake apologies. But these attempts come from weakness, not strength. Psychologists note hoovering is a survival strategy, an attempt to regain the supply they lost. Without it, Their fragile ego deteriorates quickly. Their anger during this stage can be volcanic. They explode at small triggers, blaming everyone for their pain. They accuse, project, and lash out because admitting weakness is impossible for them. But each outburst pushes more people away. The very rage they use to protect themselves ensures their isolation grows deeper, fueling the collapse. Psychologists describe this stage as narcissistic injury turning into collapse. The injury is the wound, criticism, rejection, or abandonment. The collapse is the infection that follows when they cannot heal it. Instead of reflecting, they rage and blame. Instead of learning, they destroy. This vicious cycle leaves them powerless, trapped in a cage of their own making. Their health often suffers too. Stress floods their body, leading to insomnia, weight loss, headaches, and sometimes chronic illness. The mask takes energy to maintain, and once it slips, their body feels the toll. Survivors often describe narcissists aging suddenly, as though years caught up with them in weeks. Their appearance reflects their inner collapse. Perhaps the most shocking part of their breakdown is how lost they appear. Without control, they do not know who they are. Psychologists explain narcissists have no stable identity. They define themselves by the power they hold over others. When that power is gone, their sense of self collapses, leaving a hollow, frightened shell of a person. They may try to distract themselves with reckless behavior, spending money, chasing new relationships, or creating chaos. But these distractions only mask their torment temporarily. Psychologists note that each failed attempt deepens their despair. The thrill fades quickly, and they are left emptier than before. The cycle repeats, but nothing can fill the void. Survivors often feel conflicted watching this collapse. On one hand, it's hard to witness suffering. On the other, it reveals the truth. The narcissist's power was always an illusion. Their breakdown is justice, not punishment. It is the natural outcome of a life built on lies, manipulation, and pride. It shows you were never the weak one. The day a narcissist breaks down is terrifying for them, but liberating for you. Psychologists emphasize this turning point proves freedom is possible. Their collapse is their own making. You are no longer their fuel, no longer their victim. What once drained you now destroys them. The moment they fall apart is the moment you rise. When the narcissist breaks down, the silence around them becomes deafening. Once surrounded by admirers, they now find themselves abandoned. Friends drift away, partners move on, and even family grows distant. Psychologists note this isolation is devastating for narcissists because it proves the truth they fear most. Without control, they are nothing, and nobody stays. To hide this pain, they may still perform. They post happy pictures, brag about success, and pretend everything is fine. But this mask fools fewer people as time passes. Survivors recognize the performance for what it is, and psychologists explain this false happiness is exhausting to maintain, and eventually the performance collapses like everything else. The narcissist's collapse exposes their greatest weakness. They cannot survive without validation. Ordinary people draw strength from within, but narcissists feed on others. When the supply ends, they starve emotionally. Their breakdown is the hunger of an ego that cannot be satisfied. No matter how hard they try, the emptiness only grows louder. Sometimes they become obsessed with those who escaped. They stalk, gossip, or attempt to destroy reputations. But these actions only highlight their desperation. Psychologists stress that this obsession is not love. It is fear of losing control. By focusing on you, they reveal the truth. They cannot let go because you were their lifeline. As their life unravels, shame follows them everywhere. They try to blame others, but deep down they feel the sting of failure. Psychologists explain shame is unbearable for narcissists because it threatens their illusion of superiority. The breakdown forces them to face this shame daily, and with no coping tools, it crushes them from within. Financial strain often appears at this stage. Many narcissists live recklessly, using money to fuel their image. But during collapse, debts surface, jobs are lost, and their false empire falls. Survivors often hear of narcissists who once flaunted wealth now struggling quietly. The money that once fed their ego cannot save them from reality. The loss of admiration is another blow. Narcissists crave to be seen as special, but when their manipulations are exposed, admiration turns to avoidance. Psychologists call this narcissistic mortification, the painful realization they are ordinary. This loss destroys their fantasy world, leaving only bitterness. Without admiration, they feel invisible and unworthy. Even their health suffers visibly. Sleepless nights, nervous habits, and sudden anger take a toll on their body. Survivors often describe narcissists who looked vibrant suddenly appearing exhausted, aged, and weak. Psychologists affirm the stress of collapse manifests physically, proving their emotional lies eventually carve scars into their very flesh. For survivors, the narcissist breakdown is not a spectacle to celebrate, but a lesson in truth. It shows that manipulation never lasts, control always fails, and lies always unravel. Their collapse is proof that walking away was right. It confirms that strength lies in freedom, not in clinging to someone who feeds on your soul. The day a narcissist finally breaks down is both an ending and a beginning. For them, it is the end of control, of lies, of their empire of illusions. For you, it is the beginning of healing, strength, and clarity. Psychologists remind us that their downfall is not your responsibility. It is the consequence of their choices. As the breakdown deepens, narcissists often turn to desperate measures. They may try to reinvent themselves overnight, adopting new roles or identities. But psychologists explain these reinventions rarely last because they are built on the same fragile foundation, illusion. Each attempt crumbles faster than the last, leaving them even more exhausted and humiliated than before. The narcissist relationships deteriorate quickly. New partners notice red flags sooner, friends lose patience faster, and colleagues grow tired of the drama. With fewer people to manipulate, their circle shrinks. Psychologists highlight this as one of the most painful realities of collapse. Narcissists cannot maintain connections because lies cannot sustain love. At this stage, paranoia sets in. Narcissists feel everyone is against them, whispering or plotting their downfall. They become suspicious, angry, and defensive. Psychologists emphasize this paranoia stems from their own guilt and shame projected outward. The more they fear judgment, the more they isolate themselves, accelerating their own psychological destruction. Their image, once carefully crafted, starts to unravel. They may spread stories to maintain control, but people no longer believe them. Survivors often watch narcissists become shadows of their former selves, once admired, now pitied. This collapse of image is devastating for someone whose entire life depended on appearances, leaving them hollow and broken. Even their attempts at manipulation lose their edge. Old tricks, like gaslighting or love bombing, fall flat. Survivors who once fell for the performance now see through it clearly. Psychologists affirm that when the mask is exposed, its power vanishes. The narcissist faces the unbearable reality of being powerless, stripped of their only weapon. The loneliness during this stage is suffocating. Narcissists crave constant attention, but collapse leaves them abandoned. No one rushes to answer their calls. No one believes their lies. The silence becomes their enemy. Psychologists note this silence amplifies their inner emptiness, forcing them to face the very void they spent a lifetime avoiding. Some narcissists try to escape this emptiness through addictions: alcohol, drugs, gambling, or reckless pursuits. These provide temporary relief, but ultimately worsen the collapse. Psychologists explain addiction is common among collapsing narcissists because it numbs the pain of exposure. But numbing does not heal, and each attempt only deepens their ruin. Others spiral into depression. Stripped of control, admiration, and purpose, they fall into despair. Psychologists warn this depression is not the same as remorse. It is grief for themselves, not for the people they hurt. They mourn their lost image, their lost power, their lost audience. True empathy remains absent, even in their darkest hours. The collapse reveals what was always true. Their power was an illusion. Survivors finally see that the narcissist's cruelty was never strength. It was fear disguised. Their breakdown unmasks them fully. Psychologists stress this moment is liberating for victims, because it confirms the abuse was never about weakness in you, but fragility in them. By now, the narcissist's world is small, bitter, and broken. They may rage, they may pretend, they may collapse in silence, but nothing can restore what was lost. The breakdown is permanent. Their empire of lies is gone, their control shattered. The day they break down is the day truth finally wins, leaving them powerless at last. When a narcissist finally breaks down, they lose what they valued most: control. For years they fed on the admiration and energy of others, but now, stripped of supply, they face the reality they cannot escape. Psychologists explain this moment as ego death, the shattering of their false self. What remains is emptiness that no mask can cover. Their downfall is a reminder that no deception lasts forever. Lies eventually collapse, manipulation eventually fails, and the mask always cracks. Survivors who once felt powerless see the truth. The narcissist was fragile all along. Their strength was borrowed, their confidence rehearsed. Without victims, they are exposed as weak and broken. During this breakdown, the narcissist may lash out one final time. They might spread rumors, stage dramatic displays, or attempt revenge. But these efforts only highlight their desperation. Psychologists call this a last attempt to cling to control. The louder their noise, the clearer it becomes. They have already lost everything they fought to keep. Survivors often find healing in this moment, not because they enjoy the collapse, but because it confirms justice. You see that leaving was right, that their cruelty was never power. Their downfall is not your victory to celebrate. It is proof that truth always reveals itself. Their destruction is their own, and your freedom is intact. Narcissists cannot accept responsibility. Even in collapse, they blame others for their pain, but this refusal to change ensures their suffering continues. Psychologists emphasize that healing is impossible without accountability. The narcissist's fate is sealed not by others, but by their own unwillingness to grow. They remain prisoners of their pride. The final stage of their breakdown is isolation. With bridges burned and masks shattered, they face life alone. No admirers, no audience, no one left to manipulate. Survivors often describe narcissists in their later years as bitter and forgotten. This isolation is the ultimate punishment, because it is the one thing they feared most. What keeps them awake at night is not love lost, but control lost. They replay the past, not with regret for the harm they caused, but with anger that their power slipped away. Psychologists note this is why they cannot find peace. Their mind becomes a prison, replaying the same failures, haunted by the supply that never returns. For you, the survivor, their collapse carries a lesson. It proves that your decision to walk away was strength, not weakness. It shows that healing and freedom are possible, and it reminds you that no mask, no performance, no manipulation can hold forever. Truth always rises, and lies always fall in the end. The day a narcissist finally breaks down is terrifying for them, but it is clarity for you. You see the person behind the masks, small, fragile, desperate, and in that moment, you realize they never had the power you thought they did. The power was always yours, the choice was always yours, and freedom was waiting. In conclusion, a narcissist breakdown is the collapse of everything false. Their empire of lies falls, their mask shatters, and their illusions turn to dust. While they sink into emptiness, you rise into healing. The day they break down is not just their ending, it is your new beginning, a life free from control, built on truth and peace. The day a narcissist breaks down is not just their ending, it's your beginning. Their mask may shatter, but your freedom shines brighter than ever. If this video gave you clarity or strength, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe for more powerful insights. Together we expose the truth, heal from the pain, and step into a future free from narcissistic control.